Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Empowering and educating consumers is our everything. And quite simply, we wouldn't exist without it. My name's Mark. This is Colette. We're CEOs and co-founders of Be4Beauty, and we have this little brand called the Inky List. And this presentation is live, and we are going to be very much like our brand today. We've been asked a question, we're going to answer it, and we're going to go as deep as you like and try and provide as much time as possible for Q&A. So if you want 28 minutes of life back, fun, education and empowerment is fundamental to any brand in today's society. But if you want to stick around and find out how us and others are selling tens of millions of units that are really fueled by amazing ingredients, we're going to try and explain why. So why is as a scientist, it's the most important word in the alphabet. It's in our vocabulary. It's the most important question that we've got, and we give everyone who starts in our business and our company start with why as a book and say you'll never be told off if ever you're doing anything and you're really clear why you're doing it. So why ingredients? Well, they're pretty important. They make up the fabric of life, but why ingredients in beauty? And this is where I would love to do audience participation if you were in real life, but instead I'm speaking into the void. But instead it's Mental Health Awareness Week, either this week or soon. I'm lost in what week it is. But I would love you all to say in less than 3 seconds, International Nomenclature for Cosmetic Information.
So I still can't say it today, guys.
I'll give you a moment to do that. But then why is Inky important? It's really about transparency. So no matter where you are on the planet, no matter what language you speak, there is one version of truth which should be telling you exactly what is in the products you're about to buy. What a fantastic idea that is. So the Inky is actually just about transparency. So transparency is a must, and it's no longer a differentiator anymore. It is a must. And even the Inky, as we all in the industry know it, doesn't say percentages, so it still leaves a little bit something unknown. So we, a couple of years ago, said, why don't we kind of dig into that more? So we geniusly called ourselves the Inky List, spelled phonetically, and thought, you know what, at the very least, we're going to deliver something to consumers so that they are unmistakably clear about what they are going to buy. And Colette's going to explain, how does that start to chime with consumers?
So, as Mark said, we are very, very simple people, and our whole brand and our whole business is built on some very, very simple principles. But before we talk to those, I just want you to cast your mind back. We launched our brand in 2018, which just 3 years ago, the beauty landscape looked very, very different. I know it's hard to believe, but there were lots and lots of brands and retailers that didn't even have the Inky List on their product pages. They didn't tell consumers what percentage of actives were in products, and they relied on this beautiful veil of marketing BS to convince consumers to buy products. So that's where the landscape was 3 years ago. But there was a real dichotomy because there was the rise of consumers that were starting to get curious and interested in skincare and started asking why. They wanted to understand more around skincare and what was in their products, what are ingredients and what are their role, but were very, very confused with the information they were being fed and started demanding that brands be more transparent and open around what is in their products. We saw the rise of forums such as Reddit and Facebook communities where people said, I don't understand what brands are telling me. Let's talk to each other. Let's help each other. And you can see the rise of Reddit forums and someone here saying how overwhelmed they are by the industry, really confused about what to use, really confused about what can be used together, in what order, and I've got multiple skin concerns. So you can see consumers totally confused by the industry, but also super curious. So us simple folk at the Inky List decided to focus on these people as our very core demographic. So shock horror, we don't actually classify our demographic by an age or by a gender. At the Inky List, we stand for everybody. But when we do anything in our business, we stand for two people, the curious and the confused. So let's talk to the confused, number one. So confused, we have someone like Mark's mum. Mark's mum, the day we launched our brand, bought all 15 of our first ingredients, put them in a box and said, I'll carry on using Olay. And we were like, Judy, why? Why is that? And she said, oh, I'll just stick with what I know because I just don't know. And for me, Julie really sums up a lot of people that are confused in the world of skincare, because there are so much marketing, so much information, and so much information out there. People get very confused and get into a paralysis. Once you get a consumer into paralysis, they just stick with what they know and they won't take that action. So we want to make sure that that confused customer can take those steps to understanding what the ingredient is, what it does, and how it's going to work for them, so we can take them out of a state of paralysis into action. So we're excited to stand for that confused consumer. But secondly, we stand for the curious. The curious consumer is the beauty junkie. They're engaged, they're excited, they're that magpie that wants innovation, and we love to serve them with the innovation that we have. But what's quite interesting in the skincare space is they don't just want shiny and new, they want fact. They want research, and they want every single ingredient to be tried, tested, and true. So when talking to these curious consumers, you need to make sure you've got the data to back up exactly what you're saying. So at the INKEY List, we stand for those two consumers, and everything we do in our business rolls from that.
So it all comes down to choice, and there has never been as much choice today for the consumer in content that they choose to read, let alone products and ingredients they choose to kind of engage with in a beauty landscape. So it's even more important than ever that we move them from, or how we as a business move them from paralysis or inaction and trigger an action that is going to be meaningful for them. We believe it's these four things that are really key to that: is what the hell, why the hell, how the hell, and make it fun or do it with a twist, because there's so much noise out there today that you're really going to have to cut through to that consumer in order to engage them in an action with your ingredient, your product, your brand, your service, whatever that looks like. So what? Well, as I explained earlier, we are called the INKEY List. And in terms of ingredients, we start in very simple terms. And every single ingredient that we start with, we tell the consumer how to say it. So how are we expected to, for anyone to engage in any of our products if they don't know how to say the thing?
Hydrochloric acid is a very common one. So when we're selling our hyaluronic acids, people are like, oh, is that the hydrochloric acid? No, that's something very different.
I mean, one day we should genuinely make a meme of how people say a multitude of things, but it's very important. If you consider the world as an audience, and trying to get them understand how to say certain technical names, let alone how to understand bioavailability, as we start to get into, well, how do you do things and why do they work? You know, you break it back and codify it in a very simple way. This is what it is. This is how you say it. This is what it does. This is how you do it. And as you can see on the screen, we try and codify recipes, routines, etc., and reinforce that at lots of different touch points, whether it's in content that we create online, whether it's the physical pack. In fact, if you break the pack open, there's even more ways to guide it. The consumer has a choice on how much or how little they want to engage in the ingredient, in the product, in everything around it that we wrap around it as a business. And even when it's really, really hard, explaining what percentage some of the ingredients are can cause us even more problems. But it's the right thing to do, coming back to transparency as a must-have versus a nice-to-have. It's the right thing to do, to try and explain exactly why certain percentages of things are better for you, or the reason why we formulated it is to unlock access to as many people as possible. But walking the consumer on that journey is definitely not easy, and what certainly isn't an option anymore. You have to be unmistakably clear before getting on to how.
So as Mark said, we're a single ingredient brand and we do start single ingredient first. And as Mark said, from the confused consumer, even on pack, we have how to pronounce our ingredients, right through to that curious customer, really giving them an understanding of the breakdown of ingredients in our product and really walking them through the why of those ingredients. But it doesn't stop there. And we found very, very quickly into our brand that actually helping someone understand a single ingredient is just not far enough. Imagine a world where you get the amazing tranexamic acid. You walk into a store, you pick that product up and you take it home. Now what? Where does that go in my routine? What does that ingredient play with? Can I use it with retinol? There are so many questions when consumers are working with ingredients. We need to help simplify that. As you can see on the left-hand side, we then said, right, how do we make it simple on pack? How do we help people walk through the simple skincare steps? And actually, this product fits into this step. We took that a level further when we launched our website just over a year ago. Shock horror, I hear. We only launched a website 1 year ago. We actually launched our website with a recipe builder, which is very, very simple quiz to talk you through what your skin goals are. And then what we do is spit out very, very simply, what are the products for you? In what order do they go? And when do you use them, morning or night? It sounds super simple, right? What did I say? We're simple people. 1.5 million people have used that recipe builder to understand their skincare routine. So for us, keep it simple, help people on that recipe dilemma journey. And even if you look at our Instagram right today, we have a whole month-long campaign around steps in the routine, dispelling myths and really helping to support people with how to put ingredients together and in what order they should be using it. Super, super simple, right?
It should be, but yet there's still more choice. So how do you make it even more tantalizing for the consumer? What is in it for them to try that ingredient, to try that product, brand, service, or what have you? As Colette said, the recipe builder is one way, but it comes back to choice. You've got some consumers who just are wantonly curious, and then you've got these consumers that just want to be told what to do. So enabling them to engage in as many ways as possible that's as personalized as possible for them, whether it's visuals or audio, kinesthetic, talking one-on-one or self-serving, is really, really important. And the manifestation of this, in spite of 1.5 million people self-serving themselves on the InkyList.com, is our Ask Inky service. This is powered by humans. We have got teams around the globe that are available 24/7, 365 to do what our brand exists to do, which is spread the beauty of knowledge. Like I said right at the top, for those people that checked out X amount of minutes ago and had the answer to the question, but these people exist to do only that. And they are not bonused or KPI'd on any sales. In fact, the reverse. We actually have lists of internally all our favorite products, of ingredients that we do or don't do. And if people choose to go on to buy our products, that's great. But what they must walk away with is knowing more after a conversation with our Ask Inky team than they did before they came onto the service, no matter what platform that's on. And that is comfortably uncomfortable for us a lot of the time. And it's probably comfortably uncomfortable for everyone. But the reason to believe in that is exactly the proposition of our brand, which is give consumers the choice on how to engage with ourselves, but be absolutely maniacal that we are always spreading knowledge so that they are going to make a right choice for them in the future. That might involve the Inky List, it might involve any one of a number of different brands or ingredients, but that's how we define our success in that engagement.
So you can see we have multiple touch points in the way that we actively engage with our consumer, right from single ingredient to how they can build recipes, to how they can talk to us, how they can self-serve to understand their own knowledge. But there's one very, very important thing, guys, and that is make it fun. Because do you remember being sat age 13 in your science lesson, being told a load of information that was boring you to death? I'm so sorry, Mark. I know you were a science teacher, and I'm sure your lessons were super fun.
Amazing.
Were they? But I think what we forget as brands when we're taking ourselves so seriously is actually you need to entertain that customer, and we call it edutainment. So what we want to do is make sure that people are engaged, because when they're engaged, they're in learning mode, they're in open mode. You know, they're open to learning new things, they're excited, they're engaged, and you know what, they might just buy a product. We try to do this in multiple ways. So those of you that haven't seen our faces before, Mark and I love to speak to our consumers, and we tend to do a weekly IG live where we engage, we talk to people, and we just get that conversation flowing. We recently did a huge askathon where we got, I think, 120,000 people asking us questions. We did giveaways, competitions. It was a super fun 4-hour askathon session. And last year we did an Inky School where we helped make learning fun, and we got consumers to take quizzes and work with really great industry experts to learn a little bit more about their hair and skin. So for us, entertainment is absolutely critical if you want to engage and therefore empower consumers on skincare ingredients.
So what we've learned as we tip through those different things is at every single touch point in what the consumer will feel along the way, whether you're at concept stage, developing the product, or activating the product in God knows how many channels that your business is in today, you have to be absolutely relentless and maniacal about making sure that you're covering those bases. So if it's true in skincare, is it true beyond skincare? And this year we started to explore hair care. But let's face a truism. It's as true as skincare as it is in any beauty category, as it is in food, as it is in fashion, as it is in home. And let's give that an example. There's no point having a grand design if you haven't got the right bricks to make it happen. Equally, there's no point having the best bricks, raw materials in the world if you don't have the know-how how to put it together. And if you've got both those things, you're in a really great place. But if you don't have a great experience when you're in it, if it's but ugly, if it's not functional, you're going to get no one to live there in the first place. So there's a universal truism to making sure that actually having the education and understanding to empower you to make the right decision is true in any category. And we learn that too. We say we're as black and white as our packs, and our hair care is black first and white after versus white first and black after as skincare. But it is absolutely true. You can't just expect people, because they might have heard about hyaluronic acid, tie that to hydration and go, oh, I can do this. You can't just explain to someone on the back of a bottle, this is how you could put salicylic acid treatment in your hair and this is what it does, because there's no connection. And equally, you can't just have that connection. You can't just really zoom in on a problem like thinning hair, like receding hair. You can't just start on a problem and exacerbate it and hope to fearmonger them to win. You have to always break it back to that education moment on all those different facets. And you have to reinforce that every time that you are touching that consumer, no matter where they are in the journey. So is empowering and educating consumers on ingredients important? Yeah, it's fundamental. But being successful in unlocking the opportunity about it requires a relentlessness and a maniacal nature in everything that you do.
So we hope we've been useful to you in the last 15 minutes, just giving you a bit of a rundown of what we believe education is and empowerment is for the consumers. We just wanted you to take away 3 things from this and really get from us, we hope, as simple folks, knowing that at the Inky List, we really do live through education. Our tagline of our entire brand is knowledge, your most powerful ingredient. And we believe that brands should be empowering people to make their own choice. The consumer will then take action. So if they can make that informed decision to either engage with your content or purchase your product or not, giving them the education and knowledge they need is what we believe will enable you to win.
So choice is in the consumer's hands now more than ever, and there's never been more of it. And like the universe, consumers are ruthlessly agnostic on what they'll do. So to tip the balance your way, we believe that doing these things, starting with why, being fanatical about explaining how, and repeating it and repeating it and repeating it every step of the way so that you are unmistakably clear what your ingredient, your brand, your product, your service, your whatever looks like, will hopefully tip the balance your way. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, fantastic. I believe we're going on to Q&A. Julia?
Yes, hello, hi. Hi, guys. Thank you for that fascinating talk and for joining us for the Q&A. I can tell you that we've had viewers from all over the world for your talk. We've France, Spain, Germany, even Korea. We've had people tuning in from as well. So, and on a personal note, I'll say that I'm very glad you went down the acronym route because it makes you a lot easier to introduce. So, firstly, you mentioned you do your IG lives. You mentioned Ask Inky. I was wondering, what's the most commonly asked consumer question about your science and your ingredients that they come to you with?
Good question.
It's a great question.
The science is quite specific because often that's at product level. But definitively, the most common kind of thread of questions is how to use things together, and that's actually not just about, you know, that someone's gone onto our recipe builder and bought all the regimen. It's not about that. It's about how do they start to incorporate certain things into what they are currently doing, and that's some consumers doing absolutely nothing and, you know, using face wipes and doing whatever else, and that's some consumers who are just playing in a bit more of an advanced territory. And I think we welcome in every touch point, like I said on our Ask Inky team, of tell us who else you're using so that we can give you better guidance on how you can plug our retinol in or plug polyglutamic acid into your kind of routine as well. So whilst there's a myriad of detail in there, the most common thing is help me understand how. That's the most common thread of the question for sure.
Fantastic. And one of the things I was curious about was the percentages issue. You know, what's the best way of maybe relaying to people that sometimes more doesn't, you know, more might do less than less does, given with certain ingredients? You know, how do you relay that? Because I think people assume that, you know, you bung the largest percent in there and that's the be all and end all of it. But you know, how do you relay that sometimes that maybe isn't the case, or that for them it may be better to have a slightly lower percentage of something which is maybe a bit stronger, like retinol?
I think ultimately you've got to first understand who you're talking to, because again, back to that confused and curious customer, if you're talking to somebody that's confused, trying to explain, you know, in detail, you know, the percentages, it's a difficult one. So you've got to make sure that you're kind of appealing to both consumers, and you know we have those curious customers that really know, oh well, you've got X% and the other brand's got X%, and what does that mean? It's difficult, and I think on pack we tried to make it as simple as possible to understand why that ingredient is in there and what its role is. So encapsulated retinol looks super low, but it's the way that it's built. It's really hard on a pack or on a IG post as an example. We really enjoy the conversations that we can have with consumers, because that's when you can really get into the depth. So on an IG live, we can really get into the why. Because otherwise it's quite a difficult thing. We've got an ingredient index as well on our website, which hopefully is super helpful in terms of trying to break that down. But ultimately, percentages of actives are a really difficult one for consumers to navigate, because I think they previously thought that the higher the better, which we know is not the case.
And I think the truism that we act on is just say explicitly what it is and why. Because who you're speaking to is the most important. And actually, things are changing all the time, particularly younger consumers. You know, they're not all about like our mid-30s and upwards, where historically, give me it all and I want instant results and I want it now at 30% at least. They're a lot more patient. I think they're a lot more, they buy in a lot more to prevention versus
and they're aware.
cure.
I think that kind of skin barrier, that trend right now around kind of not, ruining your skin barrier and repairing the skin barrier is really important. And I think that comes from crazy, products that have too much in, those peels that kind of really, react on people's faces, where people go too strong on a retinol. I think the younger consumer's much more aware that percentage level isn't everything, and that they do need to go low and slow to get the results they need.
But I think just giving the consumer the choice of the content. So, back to school, when you're young, you're taught the body's made up of cells and it's a dot, and then you get a bit older and it's this circle with this nucleus thing in, and then you go further and even the nucleus hole is this massive structure. So giving the consumer a choice of how deep they want to go, versus use this because it's right for you, versus you need to use this certain retinol ester because it's going to have this bioactivity over the night, versus an instant pow. It's completely up to the consumer. So our job is to give them multiple options of how deep they want to go.
Fantastic. I love the low and slow mantra. Unfortunately, I think we're just out of time. So I'd really like to round things up by thanking both of you, Mark and Colette, for joining us today and for answering those questions there. Thank you.
No worries at all. Great to meet you, Julia.
Great to meet you too.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.